This is CNN, home of fake news.
Let's bring in CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy for more. People are really bad and they just don't know how bad they are. Is that what we're learning from this?
People are just overconfident in their ability to detect false news. And so researchers asked participants, how well do you think you can identify false news? And 90% of participants, they said that they are above average in identifying false news. But when researchers compared that number to the actual data from the study after they take the survey about their knowledge on current events and compare it to the actual data, people place themselves on average about 22 percentiles higher than they scored on this test. And so, Victor, this really just highlights this news literacy problem that we have in this country, where people are consuming misinformation, conspiracy theories, things that are just not true, and they don't know it. In fact, they think they are better than other people at identifying that kind of false information. It's something we really don't talk enough about. We kind of laugh off, I think some of these conspiracy theories because they're so delusional and obviously not true. But for the people who are watching a channel like OAN or even Fox, they very much believe it.
You sound like a bitch, nigga.
A fear-mongering Joe Biden smearing Republicans as racist and claiming democracy in America is under siege over states like Texas trying to pass election integrity laws.
Are you on the side of truth or lies, fact or fiction, justice or injustice, democracy or autocracy? That's what it's coming down to. Have you no shame? We're facing the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War.
What Joe said today just upsets me. I mean, he is a pathological, shameless liar. He ran on being a unifier.
And you ain't black.
And all he does is bank on racial discontent, right? He's like comparing this bill to the KKK and to Jim Crow. It's like all he does is foment racial conflict. And he claims that he's making a moral case for voting rights as if there are no voting rights. Every American has the right to vote except the left's favorite voting blocs, which are violent felons, illegal immigrants, and the dead. The only Republicans Democrats know of are evil. It started with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was supposed to be the worst, right?
Was President Obama a senator from Illinois before he got elected president? Yes. Did Ronald Reagan run a white supremacy-based campaign? Yes. So Ronald Reagan's racist. Anybody would tell you otherwise is either living in a fantasy world or is a active agent of racism themselves.
Ronald Reagan was supposed to be the worst, right? He was Hitler. Then you got George Bush. He was, warmonger. Then you had the other George Bush. He was a warmonger. Then you had John McCain, warmonger. Then you had Mitt Romney, who was going to put everybody back in chains.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
Then we're supposed to get the biggest, greatest existential risk in history out of Donald Trump. And now we're sold, that's a lie because he's gone. And now this is a bigger existential risk than Donald Trump. This is the worst thing since the Civil War. I'm beginning to think they're exaggerating.
What gives you that idea?
I don't know. I'm just looking forward to the next existential risk.
Bush is Hitler. He killed 6 million Jews. George Bush is Hitler. He wants to kill me and you. George Bush is Hitler.
We can't take 4 more years of this president.
Our country cannot take another 4 years of Donald Trump.
I mean, this is the most consequential, not because I'm running, but because who I'm running against. This is the most consequential election in a long, long, long time. It's really not about me. But if we have 4 more years, we're going to have 4 more years of the exact same thing, only it's going to impact us for a couple generations. Folks, look, from the day he announced, from the moment he came down that escalator, what did he say in New York? He said, we're going to go out and get those rapist Mexicans. Rapist Mexicans.
He is a pathological, shameless liar.
He put a ban on all Muslims coming to the United States.
Shameless liar.
And the way he talked about the African American community. I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president.
Donald Trump truly cares about black lives. His policies show his heart. He has done more for black Americans in 4 years than Joe Biden has done in 50.
We cannot afford 4 more years of anger, hate, and division that we've seen under this president. 4 more years of Georgia, going to find ourselves in a position where if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world.
And as you know, the former president has continued to perpetuate the false claim that the election was stolen. Critics blame him for his inflammatory language and words for months about that, for causing the devastating attack on our democracy and the heart of our democracy on the Capitol. How does that continued narrative fit into this, and how will that impact the future of your party if he continues to say that?
The problem with your question, Eric, is it belies the facts that we had more illegal ballots in the last election than we've ever had in our history because we stopped checking signatures on mailed-in ballots in our major cities, and I was in Nevada and in Georgia, and that we should never vote that way again. We should all agree that we should have to follow the laws. Both of those states contravened the laws by not checking those ballots. And in New York City, they had over 100,000 ballots that mysteriously got into the count. Now, they found out about those ballots, but you can't both say illegal voting doesn't really happen to a large extent and then have over 100,000 illegal ballots be in the count in New York City.
Not enough, but Matt, not enough to tip a presidential election.
Eric, how many illegal... I would like to ask you this question because you seem to know so much. How many illegal ballots were in the count in 2020? I'll wait for your answer.
I don't have that answer off the top of my head.
How do you know what the impact would be on those illegal ballots? I'll wait for your answer.
Because election officials across the country have said that there was no massive fraud that would have changed the result of the election.
That is untrue, Eric. Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State of Georgia, didn't check those signatures in violation of the law. Now, you can say that Brad Raffensperger thinks that was fine, but it was illegal. And I'm not about relitigating 2020. I'm just saying as we go into these midterms and into another presidential election, I have a very simple idea. Follow the election laws for Democrat voters and for Republican voters. If we're going to do more mail-in ballots, we have to make sure you're legally on the list and that you have to verify that you're on that list through your signature. I think it's a very American idea. If we don't do that, Eric, we'll have chaos in our election system. People won't agree that the elections are sound, and our nation will further split apart. What I'm saying is a very, very common sense thing.
I get cut off by the computer. I'd like to continue this with you at another time,
I'd love to continue it because I think people need to know the facts. We've got to stop just reclaiming things that aren't true. They didn't check signatures on ballots. Can't do that anymore. We don't know how big it was, but it was big enough to make a big impact in these important states, which were decided by thousands of votes.
10 seconds. We'll see what the election officials say if indeed they find the fraud that is alleged to have happened.
They have already
Matt
found
Schlatt,
a lot of fraud. They've
down in
already found
Dallas.
a lot.
Thank you.
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify.